abuse industry maintains itself by defining more and more behaviours, categorising more behaviours, normal behaviours, as acts of abuse. So, for example, whereas 30 years ago the NSPCC was concerned with the killing and severe beating of children, it's now concerned with smacking children, shouting at children. It has even tried to suggest that 5-year-old boys who have an interest in 5-year-old girls are paedophiles. It's actually used those words. They're not my words, they're the NSPCC's words. Feminist movement has tried to demonise men by counting as acts of domestic violence, shouting, attempting to commit suicide as an act of domestic violence, according to the Domestic Violence Project.
So these people have massaged some of the facts. They've invented other facts and ignored those awkward facts that were contrary to their purposes. They've published countless figures for domestic violence. None of the figures are small, and all of them appear to confirm the existence of a vast and menacing problem, a problem that only appears to affect women. But what is it? What is domestic violence? If you think that it means a man, woman or child being beaten up, punched or kicked, then you're mistaken. Domestic violence as presented in the media is actually something very different. It's defined as a wide array of behaviours, most of which are not actually violent at all.
From the publicly funded Domestic Violence Project, working at the Royal Holloway College, here are some examples of domestic violence, what they count. Refusing to have sex with her is an act of domestic violence. Denying her sexuality. Mocking or humiliating her. Watching her at home or work. Now, I'm not making these up. Sending her unwanted gifts. Telling her children things she doesn't want them to know. These are all acts of domestic violence, according to our government. Swearing at her. Insulting her. Criticising her appearance. Criticising her... Well, it just goes on and on. These are now... This is the abuse industry growing, trying to bring as many forms of normal behaviour as possible under the category of domestic violence.
I think it's been trivialised down to whether slapping, kicking, punching and all the rest of it. That is, of course, it's sad that adults have to regress into childish behaviour, but it does happen. Domestic violence, to me, is where there is physical attacks on another human being from someone who is close to you and loves you, or supposed to love you.
Some of the literature on that has tended to kind of overstate the case, so, and they've tended, if you look at some of the literature, they tend to sort of stretch the definition of abuse, not just from punching and kicking or injuring in other ways, but to just sort of name-calling or nasty looks, which name-calling and nasty looks are not nice, but it kind of, you don't want to stretch the definition too far.
The Domestic Violence Project at the Royal Holloway College, this is a £3 million project funded by the Labour government, which is run by an American feminist who knows every trick in the book. I've even received emails from women telling me that my website is illegal because it's an act of domestic violence against women. You cannot complain against women without them feeling that they have a right to abuse you, to threaten you, to intimidate you. And when it comes to the mainstream media, newspapers and what have you, they won't receive a few emails, they'll receive thousands of emails, thousands of letters orchestrated by the feminist lobby, which you must remember is extremely well funded. And so the women are goaded into believing that they are being abused by the male population, when the truth of the matter is, as you can see from to the depths that they're having to sink in order to define domestic violence in every which way they can, and these things are regarded as crimes.
I got into an argument with someone a couple of months ago, and she was very sensible, and she worked in a... It wasn't kind of like a rape crisis centre or something, but it was a sort of kind of a resource centre for those kinds of things. And she was coming out with all this stuff like, it's 1 in 4 women are abused. And I'm thinking, wow, that's massive. So I said, does that mean that, of all of your friends, a quarter of them are being abused? And she went, well, no, I mean that over their whole lifetime, so not any given time. I said, okay, and what exactly counts as abuse under? What do you mean by abuse? Because this seems like an epidemic of what's going on. He said, oh, well, it means, obviously, you know, knifing and stabbing and stuff, and murder, obviously, punching and kicking, and then also name calling and ignoring and stuff like this. So what it actually boiled down to was that over that whole spread of things, it meant that, you know, 1 in 4 women over the course of their lives will be ignored for a period of time by their partners. It's kind of unfortunate if energy directed towards solving really serious problems is kind of dissipated on silly stuff like that.